I got a big old glass of water before starting to record this time. Look at who's taking care of herself in the new world. New world. God. Jesus H. Christ. New year. Unfortunately, I am not, as I had hoped, entering the world of the middle class. I've missed living there. I did not realize how good I had it until I was no longer middle class. Unfortunately, this was not my year. I misunderstood. What can you do? Moving forward, I guess. That's what this new year is all about. So I'm actually really excited because my twins... Okay, so I have this friend. Their name is Michaela, and they are my twin, but we're not sisters. And I know this sounds like one of those, like, cringy girl thing, but, like, the reason why we call each other twins is because when we went my first year of college, constantly people were coming up to me and having conversations with me like they were continuing a conversation. And I didn't know. I'm pretty sure I've never seen this person before in my life. Like, one time I was asked if I still wanted to do the talent show, and I'm like, didn't know there was a talent show. Pretty sure I never talked to you about it. I'm interested. I'm a Leo, but, like, I don't think we've had a conversation about this before. And, are you Michaela? I'm like, nope. And that kind of stuff was happening all the time. And it was happening to them too. People were coming up to them. Like, and we were always hanging. I mean, I didn't think we didn't look alike. Like, I saw them and I was just like, okay, if I had to describe myself and them, it'd be female present, which I wouldn't have used female presenting at the time because it was 2012 and I didn't know. I'm like a 19-year-old girl about this height, this size, like, we have the same build, we wore the same glasses and had the same style, but, like, still, I think we looked different enough. But apparently people could not tell us apart. And it worked out because we became really, really close. We're really good friends. Michaela's, like, one of those people who's just such a genuinely good people. So we decided we were twins because, and people still ask, are you two, like, we call each other twins, and, oh, you're twins? It's like, no, we're not, but, anyway, but, I mean, I don't think my twins look alike. I used to. When I first met them, I had a hell of a time, telling them apart, and so I was like, I'll just wait for one of them to call each other by their name, and then I'll identify by what clothes they're wearing that day. But the thing is, when they were little, they called each other sister, and I'm like, God damn it. And, like, I remember swimming once. I actually put different colored strips in their hair that day because they had the same swimsuit. And, even right when we moved in together, they were, they said to Sandra, Mom, we think Sadie doesn't remember her name sometimes. It doesn't know her name sometimes. And they were 6 at that point. It was just like, no, I know your names. I just don't always know which one I'm yelling at. But, now it's like their voices, their mannerisms, their faces are so different to me. Mog the other day said something and it's just like, I yelled at her, and, hey Mog, knock it off. And she's like, how did you know it was me? Because I know your voice. Like, I don't even have to turn around. I can hear your level of brattiness. And, so I guess, I just got tangented. It's been a big week for everyone in our area because we had a horrible, horrible snowstorm. But we'd already had 2 snow days, actually 3 for the kids. They did in-home the 3rd day, but, the school districts had already closed 3 days before Christmas break, and then immediately after Christmas break, we just got a horrible, horrible snowstorm. Got just pounded. It was like, nope, we're all finally back to work. We're all finally, the holidays are over, and, we gotta Midwestern this out. We can't fucking, this is gonna be the new normal, figure it out. So, I usually give one of the twins' friends a ride to school, and I had to call the mama, like, either you have to figure out how to get here and, get the twins and bring them to school with your daughter, or, you're gonna have to figure out a different way to get your daughter to school, because I cannot get this car out of this driveway. I was so, I could not drive down those roads. I'm like, this is, my car will get stuck. It's just not happening, dude. And so luckily she did. She not only brought the twins to school, but she brought Red to school. So that was, baby got to go to school too, because she had kids in elementary. But I also walked to work that day because, I wasn't gonna miss work, but again, I could not drive. And I had leggings on. It wasn't actually that cold, because one of the good things about the snow is when it's warm enough to snow, that means it's above 0. That's such a Northwoods thing. If you are lucky enough that it is snowing, it's not that cold. So I did layer up a bunch just because I had to go so slow because the wind was directly in my face. But I had long underwear on, and then I had leggings on, and then I had I love this skirt. I found it at Earth Exchange, and I am in love with this skirt. This is a wool skirt. So far, I have not washed it at all because it still smells pretty good. It is an outer. It's inside, it's like a jacket, and then it's wool. And this thing is the warmest piece of clothing I have. Like, my dad got after me over Christmas because he was like, you're gonna freeze to death, you're wearing a skirt. And I'm like, no, Dad. One, I've got pants under this skirt, but, like, my mom got cold and, like, do you want to wear this as a blanket? Because I love this thing. I went sledding in it. Like, this is my favorite piece of clothing. So I wore that, and then over that, I wore this beautiful prairie dress that my mom got from her buddy's basement as a Halloween costume. But it makes me feel like I'm Ma Ingalls on running through the prairie, living my little house dream, and I love it so much. So I layered these two on top of each other, and I had my wool coat, and I had my sweatshirt, my wool coat, and then, I don't think I had my mittens that day. I think one of the twins had my mittens, but my sweater was all, like, tightened up to here. I've got a picture of just, like, my little eyes sticking out because I was like, usually I'll bare neck it just because I'm so used to being out on the ice, but I'm like, nah. That was a walk. It only took me about 40 minutes. It usually takes me about 15 minutes to walk that distance in the summer. But then I got to work and my coworker she was like, why didn't you call me? I would have come and picked you up. And I was like, no, do you know how many points I give myself for doing that? And then I told him that I walked further and worse, because I did. I remember when, also in college, I was dating this guy. I know. It was college. I was experimenting, okay? It was an experimental phase for me. I thought I was bi. Like, I was like, no, I can like guys. I don't want to be gay, but, like, I can be bi. I can like guys. And, like, my dad will be okay with that. And I was like, sorry, Dad. Sorry, Dad. I tried. God knows I tried. But it's just, I turned out gayer. Turned out gayer than originally intended. Anyways, I was dating this guy. He was a nice guy, too. He lost his virginity to a girl who also later turned out to be a lesbian. I saw him after we stopped dating, and, like, he was like, how have you been? Like, how are you? Because we had mutual friends, and so we were making small talk, and he was like, are you dating anyone else? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, oh, what's his name? I'm like, her name is Jackie. His face just fell. I'm sorry, it's not you. It's not you. You were a great guy, and you deserve so much better. You are just attracted to gay chicks, and you attract gay chicks. I'm sorry. But you were a blessing to the lesbian community. Like Mako from The Legend of Korra, just a blessing. Anyways, I know Korra and Asami are both bi. Like, I don't want that bi erasure on me, but when I was dating him, he picked me up every day from school because I was living in this really shitty little garage apartment. It was me and Bryn, who's one of my best friends, and we had she's a year older than me, so she had graduated a year before me, and she had already spent 1 year on her own, but she was like, yeah, let's move in together, let's see, and it was my first time on my own, and it was an adventure. That was the winter I didn't have heat in our house, so we had these little space heaters. And the warmest it got in our house was 60 degrees. And that was immediately after moving out of my parents' house, which I never, like, we roughed it when we were up at the lake, but at home, we weren't roughing it, unless there was a power outage, I guess, but I had to get accustomed to living in a house that was 60 degrees in the middle of January. And that was probably the worst January of my life, because that was the year I had crashed my first car on the way to visit my grandma in the hospital. And while I was visiting with her in the hospital, I found out my other grandma had passed away, because my dad wasn't there, because they had put his mom on comfort care, so he had gone up to see her, but we couldn't go because our other grandma, who didn't have Alzheimer's and actually remembered us, what got pneumonia on top of her cancer. So on my way to the hospital, I crashed the car, and then I got to the hospital and I called my dad to confess that I crashed the car, and he wasn't even mad at me because he had to tell me that his mom passed away. And then then about a day later, my mom's mom passed away. And at that point, I had already started school, and I was like, I can't backtrack, I just have to keep moving forward. So I had a lot of emotions at a lot of people around this time. And since I had crashed my car, I couldn't drive. And so Mike was picking me up. We had just started dating right before my grandma's died. I asked him if he would go out with me if I gave him 6 potatoes. And he said yes, and I still owe him the 6 potatoes. Oops. I was not a good girlfriend. He definitely deserved better. I don't know how he's doing now, but I hope to God I hope he's found someone worthy of him, because he was a great guy. I tried real hard to be bi for you, Mike. And just so you know, if I chose my sexuality, but no, man, sorry. Guys are just, I really didn't choose it. It's just, guys are weird. So. But he was a dickhead in this case, so he forgot to pick me up, and it was negative, I think it was negative 14 that day, and it was windy. And I say that if it's snowing, it's exciting because that means it's warm enough to snow. However, there is a sensation. It's not snow, but it is when, I don't want to say it's ice, but it's more like shards of, it's what happens when it's a bunch of moisture freezes real fast. So, like, we actually have some humidity in the air, and it freezes, and all of those ice shards are just, like, going everywhere and loose and flying everywhere, and it was that. And I had to walk from my shitty little garage apartment all the way to the college, 9 blocks away. And, like, it was almost on the entire different side of town. And, I mean, not as long as city blocks, but still, like, decent-sized blocks. And cross the railroad, and I was just so fucking pissed. So I had to, when I got to work this previous snow day, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, are you okay? I'm like, no man, I got this. Like, this is not bad. Like, Sandra, though, was a little bit, when I was just like, oh, I've walked further and worse. She was just like, have you walked further and worse since you were 23 and messed up your hip and messed up your knee and messed up your ankle? And to her, I said, Right, I walked today, too, because, Dave needed the car to pick up baby, so, and it was actually really warm today, but it's still really slick. The plows have finally gone through, but still it's a lot of, shuffling, purely because of how, compact the snow is. It's like we're trying to build little glaciers, because it's the snow falls and then everyone walks on it instead of shoveling it. Or even if they do shovel it, you, like, unless you're scraping the ground, which as we get more and more, like, it's harder and harder. Like, there's like a solid 6 inches between the road and the top of the snow right now. Yeah, it's just how it is. And then the plows went by, which was great that the plows finally went by. But, you know, when the plows go by, they push everything up into the side. And so the sidewalk, which already was not very, it was again trodden down instead of actually, like, shoveled. But so now, like, that's going like that, and now we have this hill like that I had to figure out how to get over. Like, my ankle is not ready for this. But I did it. I managed it. It's, you know. And then I was listening to, the Spirits podcast, so they were talking about Pinocchio. Usually, my favorite podcasts I have 4 big ones and That's Why We Drink. 11, That's Why We Drink. Through them, now I'm starting to listen to Wine and Crime, which is really cool, because, like, they're from Minnesota. Like, so many times, like, they'll go off saying something, and it's just like, yep. Yeah, I didn't realize until I started listening to a podcast from Minnesota how many, like, things that are just normal to us that other places just don't understand. So, even though they're pretty far south, like, sorry gals, but, like, I don't want to be one of the snobs, but, like, you're pretty far south compared to my friend Michaela, who I think I started this by telling you about and then didn't even finish why I was excited for them, but I'm on a different tangent, so maybe I'll continue that one later. They, when we were at the Ren Fest, they met a guy who was just like, yeah, I'm from a really small, really far north town. You've probably never heard of it. And we were like, there aren't many towns north of us. Like, you might be north of us, but if you are north of us, we would have heard of you. So, like, where are you talking? And he gave us a town that was like an hour north of Minneapolis. Just like, that's mid-Minnesota at best. Like, you're still pretty far southern Minnesota at that point. Like, Duluth is northern Minnesota, but even Duluth, like, that's kind of the cutoff. If you're south of Duluth, you're not, like, there's a lot further north you can get. And, we're pretty much at the point of, like, well, if you're north of us, you're either I Falls or Canada. So, or Badette. That's where my parents grew up, was, if you were north of us, you were Badette, and then, if you weren't Badette, you were Canada. I was born in Alaska, so, southern Alaska. I will say I was born in southern Alaska, which at the time my mom and dad moved back home, they moved back south in the winter of 96, and my mom was so pissed because she was staying in my grandma's, we were staying at my grandma and grandpa's house, which is like 100 years old. Like, by the time we lived there, I think it was like 80 years old, and it was just wind just whipped through it, and like we had buckets every time it rained, and it was like in the bog. And my mom had just moved south from Anchorage, and her friends in Anchorage were still, every now and then when she'd get to get a letter from her friends in Anchorage, it'd be warmer in Anchorage than it was in Washkish. So she was just so pissed, and I didn't really know my mom at that point. Like, at that point my mom would have been my age. Yeah, if it was 96, my mom would have been my age. And, like, I knew her as mommy, but now that I'm a parent, it's just like, oh yeah, the person you know as a parent is very different than the person that I am when I'm not parent. Like, my mom was my age at that time, and she was just so petty and pissed. I've heard her talk about it, and she's just, like, salty as all fuck. She's the coldest year. I remember we watched Winnie the Pooh. And actually I think it got to -60 that year. But we actually beat that a couple years ago in the polar vortex. That being said, what we got in the polar vortex in Superior was also nowhere near what they got in the polar vortex up there. So, yeah, that polar vortex, Ellie was like, Red was like 2, and Baby was like 2, and she was just started potty training, and she got so pissed because the toilet froze, and so she regressed in potty training because the potty betrayed her. it froze. It gave us frostbite because it was so cold. And, yeah, that was another, like, when they had to close, it's, like, my boss called me and she was all disgruntled because she was mad that we had to close, and it's like, yeah, no one should be open right now. I know you're losing a day's profit, but, like, no, if people don't absolutely need to be out in this, they should not be out in this. So, yeah, this is getting long. But, I don't know. Thanks for chilling with me. I hope you have a good year. I'm hoping this year for financial stability. And I am hoping I can start to learn how to take care of my body now that it is very nearly 30 years old. And it wasn't doing too hot when it was 11 years old, so I should probably start, like, actively trying not to make it any worse. And, have a good night. Be kind to each other. Be good. Okay, very well, I'm going this time.